Hey, welcome back again to our chapter by chapter study of the book of Proverbs. And today we have gone all the way to chapter 13. I hope you have been joining along on this journey. We have covered 12 chapters and we are going all the way to chapter 31. And we are doing this for the entire month of April, where we are studying the book of Proverbs because it's full of wisdom. It's full of wisdom, and this is wisdom that is helping us to live daily in our relationships, in our communication, in our decision making. Like everything about your life is covered in the book of Proverbs. And like I've said before, the book of Proverbs will help you stay away from trouble, unnecessary trouble. And let me tell you something. Having studied this book of Proverbs, you will be tested. You will be tested. You will be brought into situations where you will be required to live up to the righteousness that we've been reading about. You'll be required to display the wisdom that we have been reading in the book of Proverbs. Just like Solomon, when he had just, been given the gift of wisdom in 1 Kings chapter 10, it shows us how not chapter 10, actually, that chapter 10 is where the Queen of Sheba came. But after he had received the gift of wisdom, two women came to him, two harlots who had had babies, but one of them slept on her baby. And she was claiming the baby of the alive baby to be her own, yet she had slept on her baby. And so they were fighting for the baby with the actual mother of the baby. So the wisdom of God was at display when Solomon was able to execute justice by helping them to actually define who the mother of that child was by the decision he took when he said, let us get a sword and cut this baby into two. So wisdom is not for just acquiring, but for actual living and actual making decisions, because every day you encounter situations where you'll be required to actually show that you have gained mastery of the wisdom of God. But we never stop learning. Even if we go all the way up to chapter 31, we will still have to read again, because the revelations keep coming daily. They keep coming. God keeps speaking to us regarding the different verses, and so we continue learning and continue, becoming better and better. So today we are diving into chapter 13 of the book of Proverbs, and he starts off just like most of the chapters we've read by saying, a wise son heeds his father's instruction. He's talking about how we need to keep keen attention to the instruction, to wisdom, to acquire it and to keep it in our hearts. And he says, but a scoffer does not listen to rebuke. Here he's giving us a contrast of the wise son and the one who is not wise. How one keeps the instruction. He's given instructions and he keeps them and he goes by it. He lives his life by the instruction. But the scoffer does not listen to rebuke. In verse 2 he says, a man shall eat well by the fruit of his mouth, but the soul of the unfaithful feeds on violence. He's talking about the power of words. When you use your words wisely, you use choice words. He says you shall eat the fruit, you shall eat well by the fruit of your mouth. In verse 3, he goes ahead to continue, explaining this concept further. He says, he who guards his mouth preserves his life. When you guard your mouth from stupid, foolish decisions, and I sometimes feel like I should not say those words, stupid and foolish, but Solomon was not shy to call out the stupid and the foolish. He called them out. So he says, he who guards his mouth preserves his life. If you don't guard your mouth, if you keep just saying anything that comes your way without thinking, in the chapter we covered yesterday, we covered a verse that talks about you have to think before you speak. So if you do not think before you speak, you'll end up making decisions, you will end up making commitments, you will end up being a surety for people who you should not be a surety for. And he says in the next section of that verse, but he who opens wide his lips shall have destruction. And by opening wide his lips here, his meaning, if you are carelessly speaking, you are carelessly making commitments, you are carelessly making comments about things you probably don't understand. And this concept has been discussed in the previous chapter. Okay? So that is why chapter by chapter, you see how he keeps repeating himself, how he keeps emphasizing the same points, because he wants us to remember. He wants us to keep on writing these words, these instructions on the tablet of our hearts, that we may not forget, but do according to what the word of God says. He says in verse 4, the soul of a lazy man desires and has nothing, but the soul of the diligent shall be made rich. The soul of a lazy man, a man who does not want to go out there and till his land because he's probably thinking something will just fall into his laps. He says he has nothing. But the soul of the diligent shall be made rich because he has gone out there to make himself busy, to do something for himself that God can bless. Verse 5 says, a righteous man hates lying, but a wicked man is loathsome and comes to shame. Righteousness guards him whose way is blameless, but wickedness overthrows a sinner. He's giving us this contrast of the righteous and the wicked, and he's talking about how the righteousness will guard the man, but the wickedness will overthrow the sinner, because he will get caught up in his activities, in his cords of wickedness that will lead to his overthrow. There is one who makes himself rich, yet he has nothing, and one who makes himself poor, yet he has great riches. The ransom of a man's life is his riches, but the poor man does not hear rebuke. The light of the righteous rejoices, but the lamp of the wicked will be put out. By pride comes nothing but strife, but with the well-advised is wisdom. He's still talking about the same things that he has shared in the previous verses. And I believe when Solomon was writing these wise sayings, I don't think he was using chapters like, the way Proverbs is laid out. But in his writing, it could have been a continuous writing, but he kept on repeating himself that when you read these instructions, you come across something he has said and come across it again and again. He's reminding you of the very things that you're supposed to be, to do, to say, and act like, so that you do not forget, so that it keeps coming back to your memory and you do the right thing. Wealth gained by dishonesty will be diminished, but he who gathers by labor will increase. Our efforts to work and not just be dishonest, going out there and cheating people of their hard-earned money. He's talking about it here in this verse, in verse 11. And verse 12, I've read this verse before several times. It says, hope deferred makes a heart sick, but when the desire comes, it is a tree of life. When you have been waiting for something and you're just hopeful, there's a point where you get to and you're like, will it ever happen? Will it ever happen? But it says, when the desire comes, it is a tree of life. Once you have crossed that boundary where you are just in the realm of hope and now you have your evidence, he says it's a tree of life. He says in verse 13, he who despises the word will be destroyed, but he who fears the commandment will be rewarded. The word of God here, he's talking about the word. If you despise his words, you'll be destroyed. But if you fear the commandments, you'll be rewarded. The law of the wise is a fountain of life, to turn one away from the snares of death. He's still emphasizing the reason why we should be writing the law on the tablet of our hearts, so that we may be remembering it and acting according to what is required of us in those verses. In verse 15, he says, good understanding gains favor, but the way of the unfaithful is hard. Good understanding gains favor. When you assign yourself, when you commit yourself to this word, to this wisdom, you will gain favor. But the way of the unfaithful, when you are not given to understanding, he's calling that person unfaithful, and he says that your way will be hard. So this verse, this chapter as well, verse 20 goes up to verse 25, and it's loaded with powerful words, powerful gems of wisdom. And like we have done before, we don't go through every verse explaining it, but just reminding ourselves of what the word is telling us in terms of how to live by righteousness and not wickedness. Let's study the word of God. Let's continue in the word of God. Let us meditate on it. Let us give ourselves to it and do it over and over again, because even Joshua was told, if you continue in the word, do not depart from it. Meditate upon it day and night. You will make your way successful. You will make your way sure in success. So today has been chapter 13. Tomorrow we go into chapter 14. And I hope you're enjoying this journey. And I hope you can go back to the previous chapters and read and study and meditate on them and see what the Lord is speaking to you concerning the book of Proverbs and the wisdom there. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll catch you tomorrow as we are covering chapter 14. Hope you're enjoying your weekend. God bless you. Subscribe to this channel. Follow, like, share, all those things that we do on social media. Do them here on this channel so that we get more people to like, more people to share, more people to watch and grow this channel. God bless you. See you.